drumming out there to start out the show. Hope everyone is having a great week. Welcome in. As always, I'm Alex Berna. That's Mike Wolfgang. And this, my friends, is the Casual Sports Podcast. Let's get to it. First weekend of high school football. It's come, it's gone. It was phenomenal. I loved it. It was amazing. It was everything I think everybody wanted, and then some. Some great plays all around. Great moments, great finishes. How about this one? Austin Town Fitch takes down a team from all the way out in Las Vegas, the number 11 team in Las Vegas in Henderson Foothill, sends them home. How about that? I don't think many people saw that one coming. That was a phenomenal showing by Fitch. They looked amazing in that game. I haven't gotten the chance to go back and watch all the games from this past weekend yet. I think I'm going to watch a good amount of them, but everything I heard, man, we had some great performances all around. And there's a lot of teams that people are talking about at the moment. Liberty quarterback had a really great game. I didn't see what his name was. John Perry connected with Nicholas Leisure for an 80-yard touchdown pass. Ross Davidson from Salem got a forced fumble that he then took for 75 yards on a scoop and score. Obviously, the big one from Matt and I's game that actually made it into the play of the week, John Trell Mixon out of Valley Christian, 81 yards out of the Wildcat. This is a 6'4", 240-pound beast of a man who went out there, took a rep at quarterback. He's not even the starting quarterback, backup quarterback running it out of the Wildcat. And he takes it 81 yards. And he was slipping tackles, making his way down there. Phenomenal effort in that game. That was really fun to see as well. And, you know, all in all, Mike, great weekend. How about this one? Girard started out with the win. How about that turnaround from last season?
Yeah, and they had a good year last year. They ended up making one of those playoff games that we all three of us went to.
Right.
It was a big one for, I think it was 35-17 or something like that. So they I know they scored 35. I don't
it was 42-24 over Streetsboro.
Okay, yeah, but so high scoring game type of shootout, and I think Gerard usually gets into those type of shootouts too. I know that you normally are decent on defense, but they've last couple of years they've had offense where they can put up points if they get to that point. But that was a good one too. And I it's like you said, I didn't keep up with too many games this weekend because I had some other stuff going on, but I'd like to go back and look at some of these because looking on Twitter, looking on, through YSN, looking through some other sites too. It looks like there was a lot of good performances, a lot of big wins, a lot of, eye openers for week one. So
a lot of eye openers.
Yeah.
And I want to throw this out there. There were some people doubting Lowellville going into this season. There's no need to doubt that team. That is an offensive nightmare over there. Vinny Balone threw 7 touchdowns this week for Lowellville. But Mike, I got to point it out. Last year, Streetsboro and Girard put together a combined 105 points. It was 70-35. This year, it was a combined 66 points. So you didn't even total Streetsboro's total from last year. Kind of incredible when you think about it. Girard's got the Battle of Belmont coming up here this next weekend against Liberty. So rivalry week going on there, Mike. Should be a fun one. What's that?
I'm glad that's back because the new conference Girard's been in the last couple years. They haven't really played each other, so I'm glad that's back.
Yeah, it's a nice one. A couple other scores around the area. Wyndham took down Lisbon Lisbon took down Wyndham 40-25. JFK beat Champion 44-14. How about that score, man? JFK is just hopping right back into it. Warren Harding falls to Medina 33-10. Valley Christian takes down their in-stadium rival Campbell 47-7. United beats Waterloo 28-7. This top of the EOAC, Mike, it's tuning up again because Southern took down McDonald 42-7. So every single defense that was one of the top 3 teams in the EOAC last year with United, Valley Christian, and Southern all gave up just 1 touchdown in their first week. That's going to be one heck of a race this season. We'll see if anybody else joins it. But those 3 last year made it a run to the finish line. Same thing's happening this year. It's going to be exciting to watch. PV fell to Mineral Ridge 41-7. I think a little surprising. Ridge didn't really have that great of an offense last year. Really turned it up for that first game, though.
Yeah, they did. And I kind of like how we've gotten a mixture of all these games that we're talking about that I've looked at too, that all these different conferences too. That you've had different type of games. You've had shootouts. You've had defensive battles, which you're going to get a good balance of that in this area because there's going to be conferences that are defensive styled and that aren't really hitting home on that, where they're more shootout type of teams. But you're getting a lot of different scores here.
Unfortunately, Malvern took down East Palestine 31-14, but, I think DJ was talking about that one the other day, just saying, hey, there's a lot of good parts that came out of that game. So they lost the first one. It was an uphill battle. Malvern was a decent team. East Palestine, they've struggled. They're now 1-30 in their last 31 games, I believe it was. So they got some building blocks to go on.
Building blocks, man. You got more than that.
they got to figure something out down there. But hey, DJ was saying that there were some good pieces in that game that makes him hopeful that they're going to get a win back this season.
Well, I hope so. I mean, you got to find some positives.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while for them. They need a win down there. Louisville, Aquinas fell to Struthers 49-6. Western Reserve did beat Liberty 41-20. Lakeview beat LeBray in a shocking matchup 34-7. I don't think anybody saw LeBray falling in this game to Lakeview. They have just been so dominant the last couple of years. But hey, first time under their new head coach, found some struggles at the gate, and I think they're going to be a team that you kind of have to watch out for now at this point. See how they respond in week 2.
Well, and I think so. You obviously you didn't start off with the way you want to because we're starting off with a new head coach, like you said. But that's not the way you want to start up. But it's expected when you're going to try to figure things out here. And I think LeBray will figure it out because they normally have strong programs over there, so they'll find a way. But that's not the way you want to start.
They really do, and they're going to have a challenge next week as our team, the Valley Christian War Eagles, are coming into town to take on LeBray. Man, I'm hoping after that week 1, upset, Valley Christian can pull it twice because those two teams, both great in their respective divisions and conferences, but going up against one another, there has been a talent gap on the side of LeBray. We'll see if VC, though, can close it. They only lost by 20 last year, and that was thanks to a huge third quarter by LeBray. Matt and I were on the call for that game last year, so could be a potential upset brewing this week, and got to watch out.
And is this one in LeBray? Or
that one's in LeBray, yes. I will not be on the call for it.
That's not out of the question that Valley Christian can catch them off guard again.
They stuck him with them for the first half last year. So,
and not only that, it's just what we just said with LeBray, that they're coming off the first loss of the year. Whether you have a new head coach or not, that you're still we started 0-1. We want to try to get on the board here.
Right, and only 7 points in the first game too. So I mean, they are still figuring out the offense, which might lead to you getting that potential upset.
Yeah, and I don't want to say Valley Christian's desperate, but when you're going on the road like that, you're against a team that's normally pretty strong. You're kind of playing with kind of house money a little bit, so you're kind of thinking, hey, let's
reckless abandon, man. Just throw it all to the wind. Go out there and play.
Yeah,
they got athletes all around, so I don't think you got to worry about that aspect of it.
That's
either.
It.
Other games after that, where was I? Girard beat Streetsboro, as mentioned. East Liverpool took down Minerva 44-7. Hubbard beat East 28-8. Lowellville beat Columbiana 55-14. Man, that offense is just something else. They're insane. Canfield narrowly scraped out West Branch 35-31. I believe I saw Drew DeShields in that game had over 400 yards of offense on his own. It was 200-something on the ground, 200-something through the air. So fantastic performance. That would have been one heck of a game to call. I believe it was Richie over there in Canfield.
Yep.
Boardman just narrowed out Cardinal Mooney. They got a late field goal to seal the deal and take home the win. But Mike, Mooney kept it close in that game. I think to a lot of people's surprise, they got a potential program turning around over there.
I hope so. I think it's really exciting when they're playing good around here. It's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Indian Valley took down Beaver Local 43-20. Matthews beat Steubenville 38-7. Those are all the scores I could get my hands on. I know we have a couple other teams, but that was the only list I'd found that had a good majority of them. And at this point, I think we're up over 40 teams here on YSN, so I'm not even 100% sure who some of our teams are because I think they just added a couple as well. So, but congratulations to all teams starting out the season. Let's keep it going because it's been fun so far.
Yeah, it's only week 1, man. You got a long way to go.
Yes, we do. We do have other local news that I kind of just want to throw out here. It revolves Youngstown East High School. I thought this was a really cool story I saw pop up on our partners WFMJ's website here today. So East basketball players and some athletes got some free gear today from a local Youngstown superstar, Terry Rozier.
Yeah.
Terry Rozier's foundation came into Youngstown East and gave about 45 athletes new gear to kick off the school year. Bags, duffel bags, traveling bags, full Puma tracksuit, Puma shoes, Puma basketball, Puma shorts, Puma shirt. So people got a lot of stuff for it, and I gotta shout that out because I think it's one of those nice stories to see to start out the week.
Yeah, Terry Rozier, local guy, went to Shaker Heights too.
I didn't even realize Terry Rozier was a local guy either.
Well, I always knew he went to Shaker Heights, but I'm like, and then some people I found it out in high school when he was first coming up in the league that he was around the area. But yeah, he's from here, went to Shaker Heights. I love anybody does stuff like that. You have to, because teams that or people that need it and you're giving back to it, that's awesome. You can't overstate that.
100%. Nice to see it. But Mike, let's send it over to the NFL because we are the national show here on Casuals on your sports network. So we got to send it back out that way. We saw preseason week 3 go by pretty well. Giants are already putting their big names onto the injury reserve as they have 2 players down, their 5th and 6th round picks with torn ACLs. Kayvon Thibodeau also now down with a sprained MCL. ACL is fine. He got a bad chop block sent his way in that game earlier this week over the weekend, and looked for a minute like he might be done for the season, but he is going to remain, thankfully, for that team, because that was kind of one of the bright spots they had was Kayvon Thibodeau was able to fall to them in the draft.
Yeah, thankfully, and he was a big time prospect in this past draft, and like you said, the Giants don't have too much, and they haven't the last how many years, but.
Right. So he's only out 3 weeks, so he's going to miss week 1 and week 2, and he'll be good to go. So I think that works just fine for the Giants.
Yeah, he'll be back for week 3 when the Cowboys are going to go beat them. But no, that looked like a little bit of a cheap shot there too. Did you see the replay?
I did see the clip of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird clip or a weird angle because technically it's legal, but it's probably one of those plays that shouldn't be when you look at it. I don't know. We'll see what the NFL does at some point with that rule. I don't know if they're going to be making any change-ups. I think they probably should, but it's one of those, like, you know, you wish that play could be avoided because it's a silly play. It didn't need to happen. Go for the shoulders, not the knees.
Yep, shoulders and midsection. That's how they're taught. You don't. Go ahead.
I was just saying, you don't need to go take out somebody's legs. I mean, the guy who was coming across as the pole, I think it was one of the their tight end, I believe it was, that went low on it. Like that tight end, Kayvon Thibodeau, were about the same size. Just go square him up. You only have to just kind of pop him for a second to let your running back get through the line.
I don't know. When you're pulling like that as a tight end or somebody on the offensive line, that's not really the type of hit you're supposed to have. Like you said, you're supposed to just nudge him for a second or kind of push him out of the way. It's not like
you're supposed to give him that big pop to kind of just stun him where they are. It's
just a quick somethings, because by the time that you do that, the running back should be out of that section. So it's not like you got to take him out or just put him on the ground. That wasn't really necessary. But like you see that type of stuff you see happen a lot where guys get their knees rolled. But where the NFL is trying to protect lower bodies and even upper with the heads too. We'll see if they do anything. If I don't know if they will or not. But like you said, we'll something to see if it happens again in the regular season, what they do.
100%. All right. First game, though, of the preseason this week, Chicago Bears, Seattle Seahawks. Chicago comes out with the win here. I think a little surprisingly. I didn't really think they were going to have much offense here, but we got to see a couple more starters in it. Justin Fields came out his first showing of the season, 5 for 7, 39 yards. Looks like they were just going with check down Fields this time around. So not really much to see from him. Nathan Peterman got some work, 8 of 14, 85 yards, 8 of 15 for Trevor Siemian with 48 yards. He had their lone passing touchdown of the night. Darrington Evans had the lone rushing touchdown, 8 carries for 39 yards. Demontre Tuggle led them on the ground, 12 carries, 41 yards. Receiving-wise, Cole Kmet, one of the best receivers they had out there. It's the tight end spot. And Isaiah Coulter had 3 receptions, 39 yards. And the lone touchdown pass went to Jake Tongs for 2 yards. So an interesting game all in all there. Cairo Santos got 9 of the team's 27 points and a 47-yard long on it as well. So nice to see that work getting done. On the other side, I mean, Seahawks, they weren't working with their quarterback this week, and Drew Lock, he was out with COVID, having to rely on Jacob Eason, who got the majority of snaps here, Geno Smith. And this is a team that, you look at it, they don't have a running back. They don't have a quarterback. They have some pretty nice, wide receivers out there, but they don't really have much of a defense anymore. And I think you saw all of that kind of get exposed against the Bears here in week 3, even though this is only week 3 of the preseason, game 2s for most teams. So you saw a lot of that, even though it's preseason, you don't want to overreact, but I think this is just a precursor of things to come for Seattle this season. It's going to be a rough one.
And I think you're going to have a part this season where I think you're going to see at some point all 3 quarterbacks, because preseason, I know Geno Smith, they keep limited action to just as Jacob Eason, but Jacob Eason didn't play that bad. I know his, 17 completions compared to 35 attempts. That's, for preseason for a guy that's young, that's fine. Regular season might not be as great, but 141 yards. I think you're going to see that. Drew Lock may start the year as a starter. I don't believe they've announced one yet, but I think you're going to see all 3 of these guys this year, because it is a rebuilding team with not a lot of talent on offense, just as a Bears case too, but they have their guy with Justin Fields, so you're not going to see that. But I'm talking overall talent on offense. Neither of these teams have anything, and I think you're going to see that a lot with the Seahawks. You're going to see a lot of different phases this year.
Yeah, and this is a situation with Seattle. Everyone's hunting for either C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever ends up having the better season this year, quarterback at their respective universities. Most likely, whoever wins the national championship, the number 1 quarterback being taken in this year's NFL draft.
And both those guys coming from Ohio State and Alabama, who normally have great receivers, if they're going to get one of those guys in the draft, they got to get some receivers too around them.
Well, you're going to have Lockett, you're going to have Metcalf.
Right.
But I do agree. You need some new speed out there, I think. Tyler Lockett's getting old, especially as a wide receiver. They don't last as long as quarterbacks or even offensive linemen. They got that same short span, maybe a little bit longer than running backs. But he's had a really great career here in the NFL. But, to your point, he's getting up there. He's 29 years old. They're going to need some new weapons to put around him. But, I mean, you do have DK Metcalf out there. And I believe, didn't they – yeah, they also brought in Noah Fant as well, the tight end.
Yeah, but you can never hurt having extra weapons,
right?
Especially receivers, but in the running game too. But like I said, now you're seeing with Justin Fields how he struggled last year, and how he's, maybe not as a reflection on him, but his numbers might lack this year too, because they don't have a whole lot of weapons in Chicago. Coming from Ohio State, he had a crap ton of weapons. Now, I know it's different when NFL, it's a different type of game and everything, but you got to help those guys out to have their play style, because that's what you drafted them based on, was that style that they were in college.
Right. Seahawks will have Drew Lock as their starting quarterback moving forward. He's going to get the majority of playing time in next week's final preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see how they move along there. Next game, though, on Friday, Panthers fell to the Patriots. Bailey Zappi got in there, 173 yards and an interception for him, but 16-25. He's looking really strong as the backup quarterback, and the fact that he got the majority of snaps in this game, I think solidifies his number 2 place on the depth chart with the Patriots going into this season.
And he didn't play bad in their first preseason game either. I pointed that out too last week. I think he's put himself as a clear number 2 option with behind Mac Jones, because they've had Brian Hoyer there for a while, but I liked what he's done so far in these 2 games.
I 100% agree with you. On the side of the Panthers, quarterback-wise, Matt Corral and Phillip Walker both, I'll say, stunk up the joint in this preseason game. Corral went 9 of 15 for 58 yards. Phillip Walker goes 8 of 15 for 107 and 2 interceptions. So it was looking good. Those interceptions kind of draw you back a little bit and you go, hold on here. But, Mike, I just got to throw this out there with the Panthers. They're working with 2 new quarterbacks, and in Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And in the preseason, those guys have thrown a combined 10 passes.
Yeah.
And they have not worked with this team. For Baker Mayfield, I mean, it's been, a month he's been there? So yeah, maybe a little bit more than that. But the fact that he's been there for a month and has 7 passes in actual game time situations, that's not good.
It's not. And especially the fact they just named him the starter today. But I think that
I'm going to point out the same problem as well with Jacoby Brissett not throwing anything for the Browns so far in preseason, because I'm annoyed by that.
And I know they got one more game left, but when you're a guy you're going to be the starter and you haven't been here as Baker and Jacoby Brissett, the two guys we just brought up, you got to see more action of them. And I think I think it wasn't surprising that Baker got named because I even said last week, I thought out of this quarterback group that the Panthers have, I think he was the best option. But still, we got to see more out of it. It's a new team, new faces. Got to get that chemistry going. We like the receivers there. We got to see more out of it.
I know a lot of the coaches, why they're doing this is they're playing a lot of these 7-on-7 scrimmages, that kind of stuff against other teams.
That's nice.
But I think Browns just did that earlier in the week. And most of the coaches said they actually prefer doing those compared to the preseason games. They feel they're more competitive and you see new defensive schemes because those teams don't want to show you their actual one. So they'll go out there defensively and change things up on you a lot. So they all claim that they like those better, and that's why you're not seeing the starters. It's because they're all doing those training camps basically with other teams. So you have that, but still, game time reps on TV with thousands of fans. You need that experience at some point before that season starts.
You can't beat it. It's that there's nothing like game action. Get real game action. Those 7-on-7s are nice. The joint practices are nice, but in training camps, nice practicing against each other. But you're not going to get real stuff until these preseason games because it's not regular season action.
And your quarterback can't get hit in those games either. So
yeah, it matters.
I think it does at least. But hey, what do we know? We're not getting paid millions to coach an NFL team.
Nothing.
Right. Next game, Saints fell to the Green Bay Packers 10-20. Ian Book looked average. But considering the fact he's the only Saints quarterback that got any work, seems like he's probably got a solid spot as number 2 on the depth chart. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good assumption. He also led the team in rushing yards, was second in carries, and Chris Olave got a touchdown in this ball game, which was nice to see. He got hit in the corner of the end zone. He looked pretty good in it. But overall, man, this Saints offense, I know they don't really have guys out there, but Michael Thomas is already, dealing with another hamstring injury. So Slant Boy is becoming injured reserve boy at this point in his career. They're really going to need Olave to step it up and be that number 1 guy this season if Michael Thomas goes down again.
It stinks because the last couple years he's been injured. Like his first couple years he was on track to be one of the a great receiver in Saints history and over in the game too.
Yeah, and his numbers were really going up.
Yeah, and I think it's it's unfortunate because you want to see the guys out there as we're, like you said, getting better every single year, and you haven't seen it. And that connection with him and Drew Brees is really good. And I think even with Jameis, if he was healthy, I think it'd be a good connection too. Because I think the Saints team, not to get off of that topic of it, but I think them this year, for how wide open the NFC is, they can do something this year.
I 100% agree. I mean, especially when you put together the core of Alvin Kamara, Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave as your offensive scheme.
And their defense
you also got Ryan Ramczyk at your right tackle, James Hurst at the left tackle. This is a really solid offense going for the Saints this year. And they have a pretty good defense with Cam Jordan defensively, Pete Warner, Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata, Tyrann Mathieu as well, and Marshawn Lattimore. Both guys they brought in for this. They just have, they're such a solid team all around. I think when you look over in the NFC, they're one of those teams that I think is going to sneak up on a lot of people. A lot of people don't like Jameis Winston as the quarterback. I think they're crazy for that because when this guy is, when he's on, and he's hard to beat.
Well, and
I forgot Andy Dalton's also on this roster. He didn't get any playing time though. He's the number 2 quarterback officially on their depth chart on ESPN at least.
And I don't think that they should be sneaking up on people this year. I think people should be fully aware of the Saints team because I know they had a down year last year, but it was partly all because of injuries. And they had an offseason where they got some higher draft picks with bringing in Olave like that. And even when they had Drew Brees a couple years ago and they were strong making runs, I don't think they've had an offense like this recently because you just ran through the weapons, at least in the receiving department. They're pretty loaded and young too.
Yeah. So moving on to the side of the Packers, Jordan Love looked meh again. I think 12 of 24, 113 yards, which is nice and a touchdown. But I feel like people are expecting a lot more out of him. I mean, if this is the guy set to replace Aaron Rodgers, I don't think Packer fans are going to be too happy. So I think the Jordan Love question mark may finally be erased on whether or not he's going to be the next quarterback of the Green Bay Packers after the Rodgers era comes to an end. I think they're going to be out there quarterback hunting again. And I'll throw this one out there, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
He's going to be available this offseason. At this point, it seems like a virtual guarantee that he's going to be on a 1-year contract and he's going to be a free agent going into this offseason. And if Aaron Rodgers finally calls it a quit, that's probably a perfect spot for Jimmy Garoppolo to fall into because he's such a similar style of quarterback as well. Doesn't necessarily have the same arm, but I think he would fit that system.
Yeah, and I think too with Jimmy, I think this would be really a similar type of style, like you said, with Aaron Rodgers. But I think Aaron Rodgers' athletic ability sticks out more than Jimmy's. But obviously with Jordan Love too, he was in there pretty much the whole game, and he struggled. He didn't struggle, but like you said, it was average. And I think when you are the guy behind Aaron Rodgers, who they go up to draft for you, and you're playing in a preseason game against guys that, second and third group guys who are trying to make a team, and it's just average. I think it's got to be better than that.
100%. Houston Texans, though, took down the LA Rams 24-20. Texans now undefeated in the preseason at 2-0. All their quarterbacks did really well against this Rams fourth unit. That's the reality of it, is that the Rams weren't playing really anybody in this game. I'm looking down the list. We're at that point in the preseason. It's your deepest guys on the roster that are trying to make the roster. That's what preseason has really come into. It's game time tryouts is really what it feels like at this point. Quarterback-wise, Texans did just fine. Davis Mills looked all right. Kyle Allen looked actually pretty good. Jeff Driscoll came out there, went 3 of 3 for 17 yards and a touchdown. Situation of football, man. He nailed it. Can't do any better than that.
No, and
Nico Collins looked impressive as well in the receiving core. And that's a big development that they need.
Yeah, and you talked about the quarterback part of it too. Davis Mills is the guy I've said a few times that I do like, and he's a guy that his numbers, like you said, they were good. They were good, 10 of 17 for 96 yards. Yeah, had one interception, but he had 2 big throws late that kind of led to them beating the Rams in this game. So I've continued to like what I've seen out of Davis Mills too.
Yeah, 100% agree there. Next game, though, not really much to talk about on the Rams side of it since nobody was playing. But Bills go big over the Broncos, 42-15, and there was only 2 passing touchdowns in this game. Duke Johnson had 2 rushing touchdowns. Zach Moss had 2 rushing touchdowns. Case Keenum went 16 of 18 for 192 yards and a touchdown. Matt Barkley went 7 of 8 for 65 yards, and Josh Allen 3 of 3 for 45 yards and a touchdown as well. This was a total, utter mismatch in every single direction, and it's one of those reasons why I'm not trusting this Denver Broncos team whatsoever come this season. I mean, I know this is a lot of their backups, but the fact that their quarterback, Brent Ripien, went 22 of 26 for 191 yards, and they only had 1 touchdown in the entire game, means this team, they're a choke artist. And I think you're going to see that because that seems to be Russell Wilson's specialty at this point in his career. You'll look good at first. Everything looks promising, especially on paper, and then it all comes crashing down at the perfectly wrong moment. That's Russell Wilson's career, and that's the way this game looked for the Broncos as well. Because statistically, you look on paper, they should put up 40 points, but they had 15, 9 of which came from their kicker, which is not how you want to win a football game.
Yeah. And you're talking
Shout out to Brandon McManus, though, for knocking through a 55-yarder.
I did see that. That was pretty nice. That was.
Yeah.
But on the part, we're talking 40 points in a preseason game too. That's a big amount, 42 to put up.
Yeah.
And Josh Allen, I know he was limited, but I got to point out that throw he had to, that scramble with spin move, and then he just throws a dart. That's just what his game is. It's kind of similar to Pat Mahomes in terms of scramble ability, but he showed that off last year in the playoff game. So he's athletic, dude. And these guys that are around him, this is going to be a good, exciting year for the Bills this year. It really is.
100%. Next game, it was a good game. There's not many talking points out of it, though, because most of the starters didn't play. But Lions and the Colts both showed us a fun one, 27-26. But like I said, no one really played in this game, so it's more of a tryout game. But I got to say, it was, fun to see those kind of matchups at this point in the preseason, to have it be that close. Chiefs took down the Commanders in this game. Passing-wise, not too bad. Sam Howell, did have an interception on 122 yards. Taylor Heineke had a touchdown. He actually looked a lot better than he did in week one of their matchups. And Carson Wentz 6 of 9 for 64 yards. A decent performance from them. I'm interested to see how this team, though, is going to operate with their starters in the entire time, because seeing just bits and pieces of it for this Commanders team, I don't think it's a fair assessment of what that team can be. I think they're one of the biggest question marks, especially over there in the NFC East, on what they are going to be, because they're either a 3-win team or a 9 or 10-win team, and I have no idea which one it's going to be until we actually see it. On the side of the Chiefs, Mahomes was Mahomes, threw 2 touchdowns on 12 completions and 162 yards. They really still didn't find a way to get the ground game going, but they weren't really focused on running the football. They wanted to just let Mahomes go out there and start chucking the football, and he did. They win. Good job there. Raiders take down the Dolphins 15-13. No really big storylines from that game individually on the side of the Raiders. However, after a 6-for-9 day for 39 yards, Nick Mullins has been traded to the Minnesota Vikings for a conditional 2024 7th-round pick. So that's the one side of the Raiders that came out of this week, is they are cutting that roster down. Jarrett Stidham, Chase Garbers, and Derek Carr look to be your 3 quarterbacks getting carried at least until the final week. We'll see if Chase Garbers continues to make the preseason list.
That's good. That's a good room for, I think, the Raiders go into the season with too.
Right, yeah, because you got some experience with Stidham, you got your guy in Carr, then you have the young wild card with Garbers.
Yeah, a guy in Stidham who's been with the Patriots and has been behind Tom Brady. So
right, so a good place to be. On the side of the Dolphins, Tua went out there, went 6 for 8, 58 yards. Teddy Bridgewater got the majority of snaps in the game, going 10 for 20 and 119. I got to say right now for the Dolphins, Teddy Bridgewater is looking like QB3, because QB2, Skylar Thompson, 9 of 10, 129 yards and a touchdown for this guy. I mean, I don't think anybody was really expecting that out of the quarterback from Kansas State, taken in the 7th round quarterback. And he went out there and did that. So I got to give props there. Myles Gaskins on the ground, rushed it 4 times for 12 yards. But other than that, Eric Ezukanma had probably the best day receiving wise, 6 receptions, 114 yards. I think we're going to see a lot of air raid offenses get thrown into the NFL this season here, Mike.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's been easing its way in the last couple of years, too.
It really is. And you look across, it's getting really hard to run the football, because we're getting some of the biggest D linemen we've had in a while. And we're getting smarter and smarter linebackers that seem to understand run fits better than I think they ever have before. You're getting extreme help from safeties and your DBs back there that you just didn't always used to get on every team. And I feel like every team these days are putting together phenomenal run defenses. It's every team's goal is to control the line of scrimmage, and they're all doing it.
And I think that you're getting ways that you're using running backs in different ways. People are going to start using read options more. They're going to, have the running backs go out for bubble screens and kind of have them line up as receivers too. That's talking about defense kind of stepping up and kind of affecting the running game. Running games are also finding their own ways to be effective as that's coming in too. So football's changing too. And I think with these guys too, I just even touched on the quarterbacks coming out of universities with usually pretty good receivers. That's part of the air raid factor. You're getting a lot of good athletes that can run down the field and a lot of guys behind the field with the ball who could throw it as far as they want.
Right. Next game, Steelers just narrowly edge one out against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They win at 16-15. Mason Rudolph looks to be at the moment 3rd-string quarterback. I think with the way things are lining up, he's been impressive though in preseason, and he's definitely keeping his name on their roster. So these are going to be the 3 guys they carry in here, in Trubisky, Pickett, and Rudolph. We don't know starting order. Trubisky seems like the odds-on favorite to start. Kenny Pickett, though, keeping his hat in the mix, went 6 of 7, 76 yards and a touchdown. Trubisky, 5 of 8 and 60 yards, no touchdowns. But can I just say, Pittsburgh ain't running the football this year again. I know that they don't have Najee yet, and they're not really working the ground game very much, because I think they are trying to test out their quarterback room. But considering the fact that Mitch Trubisky was 2nd in the game in rushing yards, and he rushed it once for 10 yards.
And their offensive line, I told Matt this too. It was all right last year, but Kendrick Green did not play good in this game. and on their offensive line. He did not play well. Couple of clips I saw where guys pretty much got past him. He barely even got a hand on him. So that's not good if you're trying to run the football. But I think I even said this last week. I think Mitch Trubisky looks like he's going to be the starter. But Alec, Kenny Pickett's making it look interesting here.
He is.
He's when he's been in these 2 preseason games, good things have started to happen when he's in there. And I think, he's shown and I like this part of it too. I just talked about the offensive line. I think it was the same clip that Kendrick Green kind of had got well right past him. Kenny Pickett stood in there and got off a pass. I think it was like 10 to 15 yards. So, again, you want the offensive line to be strong, but this is a rookie in there that is taking this type of stuff. So, I think he's making it look really interesting.
He's looking impressive. And I think the big thing of it, you're going to see Trubisky start. Mike Tomlin wouldn't have brought him in if he wasn't going to start him. I think that's number one. Mike Tomlin's too smart of a coach to bring somebody in and never use them and use up that much cap space. I know, he's not there in a big deal, but that's a guy that money you could have used for an offensive lineman, a defensive back. There's so many positions that the Steelers love to utilize. They wouldn't have brought Trubisky in if he wasn't the day one starter. So there's that. But I'm right there. Kenny Pickett is going to take over this offense at some point. It's only a matter of when, because he's too good to get left on the bench, and Mike Tomlin knows that.
And I think with Trubisky, obviously he's not going to be the starter long term. This year, we'll see what happens down the road. But he's the type of guy that's going to win for this team that they have right now. He's going to be a guy that wins them regular season games, maybe a playoff game here and there. And I'm trying not to get too hyped up on the Pickett stuff because people are on Twitter acting like this guy's going to be Tom Brady. We just pump the brakes a little bit. But I think if he continues to do this with his experience that I talked about when he got drafted, all them years of Pitt, got better every single year, it could be a guy that could lead the Steelers back to where they want to be.
I think he might be a year 2 starter. He should be the number 1 starter by next season, 100%. We'll see. I could imagine we're going to see some situations. Kenny Pickett's going to play. It's not going to be a solo quarterback system here in Pittsburgh this season. But I think Trubisky is going to get the majority. He's going to run the offense. But they're going to throw Pickett in there. They're going to try him out some wrinkles, get him out there in the formations, just get him seeing the game. And if they get up big at any point in this season, which I don't think they will, he's going to be right there on the sidelines getting ready to suit up because they want to get him in. They want to get him that experience, and he's a really solid guy.
And something comes to my mind, too, even with Ben Roethlisberger retired, even in preseason games, the Steelers team always finds ways to make games come down to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Always. 1 point win in the preseason. That's just what the Steelers do. They just make things close.
They do. And one more thing on Kenny Pickett, then we'll move to the side of the Jags. I got to say, when I see Kenny Pickett, I am, I hate to go compare to Hall of Famers and all that, but I do see Drew Brees.
I see something like that,
very
too.
Similar play style. If you were to find a pro comparison, I would say Drew Brees to Kenny Pickett.
And it's not like you're expecting him to do that. It's just
not expecting him to be what Drew Brees was and have, amazing stats because Drew Brees is what, 3rd all time in passing yards or 2nd all time in passing yards because I believe he passed Peyton Manning before Tom Brady did, and then Tom Brady passed him. So, but Kenny Pickett, the play style, the build, everything it reminds you of that. And we obviously saw how well that worked, and actually kind of how well that's working now in the NFL with guys like Kyler Murray, who's similar, probably a little bit more, definitely a little bit more athletic than Brees was, and maybe not as accurate, but look around the league. Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, these mobile athletic guys that can sling it, and that was Drew Brees for a good portion of his career.
And I agree. That's what Kenny Pickett's game is. He could stand there and take hits and get a throw off. Like I just said that he just did this past game when a guy got in his face. He's shown off his athletic ability. We saw it in that ACC title game last year where he had that big run. But again, time will tell. I'm not trying to.
When he faked out the slide on.
Yeah, that even though that was illegal, it was pretty sweet. Not illegal.
Well, it wasn't illegal then. It's illegal
not illegal,
now,
but dangerous.
It was made illegal the very next day.
I meant to say dangerous because that could have been dangerous for him and the defender. But
yeah,
time will tell with him. I'm trying to get too hyped up about it, but I think he's comfortable where he's at. He's not NFL experience, but he's got a lot of college reps underneath him, which is what you want in a quarterback. So she could be experienced too.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and I think with that type of stuff, like I said, the situation he's in, he's comfortable. I think he has what it takes. I think to lead the Steelers to where they want to go. Will it happen? I don't know, but on paper, the trajectory, I think it should go on. He could be the next great Stewart quarterback, I think.
Potentially. On the side of the Jaguars, though, we got to see Trevor Lawrence get the majority of reps in this game, and I think a big portion of that is they just don't have backup quarterbacks on this team. E.J. Perry, C.J. Beathard, Jake Luton, none of those guys are starters for this team. We got to see more Travis Etienne. He looked all right. Trevor Lawrence looked all right. The problem still remains, though. They just don't have a guy on this offense that can go out there and give you that big play over the top when you need it. They don't have that kind of game breaker on it. They have some really good players all around. I mean, look at the wide receiver core with Christian Kirk out there. He's a great wide receiver, but it just doesn't feel like they have a wide receiver that can really go and change the ball game.
They don't. I think that's why we talked about this year. I think they can maybe get a couple wins that we don't expect them to get, but they just don't. They're still not fully at that point where, and I think with rebuilding teams, you have to have a year where you exceed people's expectations. Like I use the example, like kind of like how the Cavs did this year, where not many people expect them to do what they did. I don't think the Jags are there yet. I think they're looking nice. They're getting better, but and I don't think this is the year that they're going to have one of those seasons. Maybe next year, but I think in terms of this year, like Trevor Lawrence had some nice plays this game. I think he's going to have a better year this year, but how far it's going to take them with lack of depth they have, because I think you said like their talent. I agree with you. I think it's good and it's okay for this team, but depth behind them, that's a problem. I think that's going to bite them.
100%. Next game on, 49ers took down the Vikings 17-7. Nothing really interesting on the side of the Niners here. They got the young quarterback who didn't play. They did bring in Trey Sermon. Not much there from him, though, in the game. They really were just making this a slow burner. That's exactly what it ended up being. They pulled out the win at the end. On the side of the Vikings, though, it becomes real interesting in their quarterback talk because of the Nick Mullins trade that they just acquired for that conditional 7th-round draft pick. Kellen Mond went 10 of 20, 82 yards, 2 interceptions. Sean Mannion, the third-string quarterback, went 10 of 15 for 65 yards in this game. And the acquisition of Kellen Mond has most sports analysts, myself included, believing this is the end of Kellen Mond as the backup quarterback for the Vikings, so long as, Nick Mullins comes in and can beat him out in training camp, which is obviously why they acquired him with 1 week to go.
Yeah, try to see what you can got, see if you make things interesting, kind of strengthen up your depth a little bit. But I agree with you on that. But and on the 49ers side too, they don't have a whole lot behind Trey Lance. Nate Sudfeld played all right, Purdy played all right, but that's another thing too. I don't think they have, if something happened to Trey Lance as a backup guy, or as a young guy too, that's not as strong. I think they need more leadership under that. But we'll see. I think
they're going to be relying on their defense again this year. That's where they're going to be strongest. They have good wide receivers. They have a decent running back room. Their one hole is quarterbacks, and we'll see how the young quarterback develops. But, every team, it's, if your quarterback goes down, you're done. And that's true for most teams. So even though that's a young group, they don't have experience there, I think it's going to be just fine for the Niners in that department.
And I think they'll be okay this year, too. I think they're another category. I know they were in the title game last year, but I think they're a team like the Saints this year, where I know, younger too, but Trey Lance is going to be a guy that Kyle Shanahan's going to make things work. He did it last year. They did minimal things on offense, and it worked. They got to the NFC title game. So Kyle Shanahan's going to find ways to make him comfortable.
Yep, he is. Buccaneers fell to the Titans 3-13. No real storylines on the side of the Buccaneers. Kyle Trask looked mad. Blaine Gabbert was mad. They really didn't play anybody, so nothing to worry about there. Tom Brady's back in practice after his extended vacation here in the offseason. Rumors coming around he might be appearing on this season of The Masked Singer on Fox. That's what people are conspirizing. That's why he was gone for this 2-week filming period, because he's going to be a broadcaster with Fox as soon as his NFL career finishes off.
We'll see. There's stuff flying around all the time.
But I think it's kind of a fun one. Yeah. You never know. That'd be interesting to see. Malik Willis, though, again becomes the highlight reel of the Tennessee Titans. He does get the win. Not the most accurate guy. He looks super raw, but super talented. I think that's what everybody knew coming in, is this guy might have the highest upside of anyone in the draft, but you're going to have to build him. He is not a now starter. He's a starter probably in 2 to 3 years.
I wouldn't even be shocked by end of this year, start next year. He is a starter for this team.
I don't know. I think that's a little. I just think that might be a little early, but this is a team based around Derrick Henry, so I think you could see that. especially if they can then throw in the read option with how much this guy can move. I mean, he led the team in rushing with 42 yards on just 5 carries. If, they can make this into, RPOs and read options on this, it's going to make that team so lethal on the ground. It's going to be insane. If they weren't already good enough in that department, they might be even better now.
They could get better. Yeah.
We did see Hassan Haskins, 12 carries, 39 yards. Didn't really see him get any of those big pops out, though. So we'll see how they use him in the regular season because, we saw how great he could be, especially in big games last year at Michigan. But, this is a team in the Titans that they're solid in the running back room. They got Derrick Henry. I'm interested to see if they kind of maybe use Hassan Haskins more of, scat back in receiving situations.
And that's another part that can make their ground game lethal because he's another high talented guy.
Yes, he is. Next game, Mike, your Cowboys came out that a lot better than their first game as they beat the Chargers 32-18. We got to see Will Grier, the man that made the Mountaineers relevant in West Virginia, because ever since he left, they have been awful.
Bad.
6 for 10, 98 yards for him. I think he smoked out Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush in that game. And, not by much. I think it's funny you guys had 32 points and not a single passing touchdown in that game, which just seems to be about right for how odd the Cowboys are in preseason, or really just in general. Rico Dowdle, Malik Davis had the 2 rushing touchdowns for your team. Mike, did you get to see the game?
I did not because I was driving back from my road trip. But they, again, 32 points. You didn't get receivings, but you got two kick returns from Kevontae Turbin, who I'm also
how about that one?
Well, one kickoff, 1 punt return, and I'm interested to see if they can use him they should be using him because he is a receiver. How they're going to use him in the receiving department too this year? Because if they can use him with his skill set that he just showed off in this game, that could strengthen up the receiving core. That's kind of a little bit of a question mark for them going into the year.
Yeah, 100%. And we haven't seen getting both a punt return and a kick return in the same game.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's happened in the NFL's history in the same game. If it was probably Cordero Patterson or Josh Gibbs.
Yeah, I forget how good he was too.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Browns always seem to find really nice players, and then it's a couple shiny years, and then it's gone. Josh Cribbs, not Gibbs. Wrong one.
Whatever,
but
I got it.
Will Grier in this, Mike, do you think he's going to be back up, or do you think they give it to Rush or DiNucci?
I think you got to stay with Cooper Rush. And not only because he's been there for a little bit, but I think last year when there was games that Dak was out, he did his job. And I think, with Will Grier, he's just not – he hasn't got a lot of opportunities, so I'm not going to try to write him off. But I think you got to stay with the guy that's been there and the guy that's done more for them. And I think he's more capable of Cooper Rush doing stuff if Dak's out. So I'd probably stay with Cooper Rush. But I'm rooting for a guy like Will Grier too. I want to, whatever he does in these preseason games, whatever he does in the last one, even whether it's with Dallas or somebody else, I would like to see him do something. But I think you got to stick with Cooper Rush if it's me too.
This was said about Turpin by your head coach Mike McCarthy. He said there's a great chance that he's going to be returning kicks against Tampa Bay in Week 1. So we do have that out there. I was looking to see what McCarthy was saying about Grier. He did say Grier might have actually gotten injured in this game, so that won't hurt, or that won't help him, I guess. But he didn't give away whether or not he was considering him as the new backup, so likely not if he didn't mention it. Browns, Eagles come out on top 21-20. Gardner Minshew, man, was slinging it. Josh Dobbs looked pretty good. Josh Rosen, he was looking good at first, then he kind of struggled to find any completions in that game. And I got to throw this out there. Yeah, Davon Allen for the Eagles was a multi-time Olympian in the 110-meter hurdles. Dude showed off absolute blazing speed against the Browns DBs. He completely cooked them. Yeah, it wasn't even funny how much he just went off the line. Browns were running a zone. He just split right between the two safeties and just kept on going as Minshew just put the perfect ball over the shoulder and put him right there into the end zone for 55 yards. And this kid was just absolutely blazing. You put this guy into the offense with the likes of Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. I believe they acquired him as well.
Yep.
they have unbelievable amounts of weapons at the wide receiver position going into the season. So I got to throw that out there. Browns didn't really play too many guys. Yet again, though, John Kelly looked pretty strong, and I got to say, I like seeing that for the Browns. Dearness Johnson looked a little bit better, only 2 carries, but 21 yards. Anthony Schwartz, I think, is going to be a big question mark for this Browns team coming into the season because much like a lot of he feels like a guy that would fit really well for the Steelers because sometimes he makes these really awesome plays and he has amazing hands, and then the very next play he'll drop the easiest of passes.
Yeah.
He feels like a Steelers wide receiver more than a Browns wide receiver because a Browns wide receiver never makes the good play. That's the difference. I'll throw my own team under the bus there. I had to.
You have to.
It was too great of a situation to not say that. I was like, oh, come on, we never make it.
Well,
that's the reason we went 0-16. Of course, Corey Coleman dropped a pass in his hands on the 1.
When you get called out, you need to get called out. I don't care if it's my team or not. I'll do it.
Right. David Bell, though, I'm really liking the way he's developing, and it seems like Josh Dobbs like him. It seems like everyone has liked David Bell in the way he's been working so far. Richard the Count III on defense looked very strong in this game. I liked it. Cade York has a lot of people excited. Went 2 for 3 on field goals. Hit a long of 50. The one he missed, I think, was 50 plus again, and he hit the right upright. So for seeing a first-year guy, he was kicking it very well. Bjorkes punting it, put it 45 yards on the only punt he had of the day. And I found this stat interesting. I don't have the exact numbers on it, but the Browns going into this preseason roster, they lead the NFL in hyphenated names and extended names, I think is the best way to put it. So they have like a metric crap ton of either hyphens, juniors, seniors, the thirds, fourths, and the entire tight end room outside of David Njoku are all hyphenated names.
Yeah, and I did see in that first game against the Jaguars, for the part of it I watched it, somebody actually asked Kevin Stefanski about that. He's like, it's kind of hard to keep up with all the names because we got juniors, like you said, the thirds, fourths, the hyphenated names, Donovan People-Jones and stuff like that. But yeah, it's different type of group they got name wise.
Right, and then actually on the broadcast on ABC this past Sunday, they actually had like one of the chief specialist guys who helps out with draft picks and pretty much the leader of the statistical department for the Browns and all that was up in the booth talking about it and actually had mentioned that. And he made a joke saying, oh, my daughter really likes those hyphenated names. So we went out and got all the hyphenated names that we could.
Whatever. I don't think anybody's doing that intentionally, but
no, but it's just, you look at it because they had asked us like, are you just going out purposely trying to find all of the longest names possible? Like the broadcaster was almost jokingly complaining about how long those names were.
Well, yeah, that's when they brought it up when I saw in the first game against Jacksonville, and then it's like, but I mean, they're not doing it intentionally, but it's like, are you, like you said, at some point
they're just screwing with the broadcasters here in preseason. None of these guys are making the list, but they're just doing this just so that nobody can say who they're cutting this year.
Yeah.
I mean, even last year, the big storyline, Damon Sheehy Giuseppe, dude had 2 last names.
Yeah.
Next game, there. Giants, Bengals. Giants come out with the win. Daniel Jones, completion-wise, was good. Didn't throw a touchdown, and he threw an interception. Davis Webb, however, 22 of 27, 204 yards, and a 2 touchdown. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah,
average is 7.6 yards.
Right. But, I don't know. I mean, I don't really just make takeaways. Kayvon Thibodeau was kind of the big injury in it. On the side of the Bengals, they didn't put their big guys out there, so nothing really major going on. Ravens beat the Cardinals 24-17, and they now hold on to the longest winning streak in NFL preseason history, overtaking the 1950 Green Bay Packers led by the legendary head coach Vince Lombardi.
I believe it's at 22 now.
Yes, it's at 22. 21, I believe they tied the record last week. This week, they overtook it.
And I saw parts of this game, too. I got to shout out Trace McSorley. Had a rushing touchdown, so got to throw that. He didn't play that bad. And the Ravens, actually,
only had 2 interceptions, though.
I know, but and Tyler Huntley didn't play that bad for the Ravens either. 13 to 14 for 129.
Yeah, and
I think he's a good backup for them.
Definitely. Anthony Brown's a young guy, inexperienced, but, you saw it. 10 to 13, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He's got to clean up the bad parts, but I think overall, that's not bad.
No,
for a rookie quarterback as well.
Yeah.
who wasn't taken very high. Isaiah Likely looked really good as well. 8 receptions, 100 yards. Riley Webb, 2 receptions, 46 yards, touchdowns for the both of them. So some nice takeaways there. But again, another team, not really many guys were playing in it. So not much to take away. And then final game of the week tonight, Falcons, Jets, 8 p.m. tonight. We'll recap that tomorrow. Coming up later this week on the show, of course, we'll be talking about the week 2 of high school football here in the area. But, Mike, it's week 0 of college football. The long wait is finally here. The biggest game, Nebraska, Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland, this Saturday, 12:30. I can't wait for that. We're going to be talking all of those week 0 games coming up later this week. And, Mike, I was going to say Matt because he normally hands this one out, but Mike, we got to hand out Beast of the Week, and there's a lot of people around the area that we could give this to, especially local, and a lot of players in the NFL is what I think we could give it to, but Matt and I had both kind of said after what we saw this past Friday, Jontrell Mixon just seemed like such a maniac out there that we had to give it to him. So Jontrell Mixon is this week's Beast of the Week, baby. An absolute monster for Valley Christian. 6'4", 240, ran it, the 81-yard touchdown run. He went 2 for 4 at quarterback, throwing it for 24 yards. He also had one that came down incomplete pass interference called, but he actually threw the ball about 50 yards as well. It doesn't go down in the stats or anything for how long you threw the ball, especially because it was incomplete and got called back for pass interference, so they ended up getting it anyways. But he also went out there. He had both punts and kicks of over 50 yards in this game, and he also had the first reception of the game. He's only one, but he still took it for 20 yards or more. So Jontrell Mixon is this week's Beast of the Week, and I got to throw honorable mentions out to Drew DeShields from West Branch, over 400 yards of offense, and Balone over there at Louisville for 7 touchdown passes, because both of those absolute beasts. And Austintown Fitch, honorable mention, just for going out there and dominating the out-of-state opponent.
I mean, when you do everything like that, you deserve Beast of the Week. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, it was just such a do-it-all performance. I mean, every time we were looking – not to mention, Jontrell Mixon also out of his defensive line position as a D-end, reached up, grabbed David Moore's pass out of midair from D-end. So he had about, half a second to react to it, steals it out of the air and takes it for a house call on a pick 6.
Hey, that's, like I said, it's Beast of the Week material.
Right. It was the perfect storm that correlated. We won't be giving it to him every week. We'll try and not give it to Valley Christian players, but we'll be seeing a lot of them this season. So that's going to do it here for the Casual Sports Podcast Power Hour. Coming up next on your sports network, I believe they might be talking power rankings. So stay tuned for that one. I've been Alec Cabrera. That's Mike. Wolfgang. We'll be back on it tomorrow.